Absolutely. And there's a lot of personal accountability in this work overall. And the master classes kind of opens the door to understanding it, because ultimately, I mean, it goes much deeper, and this isn't even, this kind of goes beyond the master class, but I'm more into like my work and my coaching. But, we are 100% from the day, I mean, from early days, really responsible for every single thing that's happened in our life. And when you're a person that lives in victim mentality, why is this always happening to me? Why, that kind of thinking, that kind of mindset. This is a really great way to open the door and understand how things aren't happening to you, they're happening for you. And in fact, you are actually at the helm of it all.
So I thought to myself when we were going to do this, and of course we talked our pre-show prep like normal. We have already seen each other's pages and know of each other's work, and I said to myself, how can I talk about the masterclass and leave it at that when I love listening to you talk about attachment styles and still keep it under 5 hours? So, 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 so I said, I'm going to be really good, but you're going down that road that I love to delve down. And I really want to discuss for a moment. When you say that we are at the helm, many people may not understand what you mean by that. I am proud enough to say that I did a show with you, a couple of episodes. So I have a pretty good understanding. But will you expand on that, expound on that a little bit more for those who may find that hard to swallow, let alone hard to understand or get their thoughts around?
Okay, I want to first clarify that I'm not talking about, children that are growing up in abused homes, and I'm not talking about any kinds of like serious
Trauma
issues,
based
right?
issues,
Well,
right?
yeah, big
Right. As
trauma-based
big trauma,
issues.
I should say. Right.
Yeah, and that especially where, children are kind of in that situation. But as adults, even if you are a child of abuse, as adults, we have the conscious mind that doesn't want to be in those situations, and and oftentimes we end up in very similar situations. And a lot of times it's hard to see the link, and it's hard to see how everything relates back. But if you again, going through my program and, starting with the Relearn to Date masterclass, you start to see how everything in your life is a result of your subconscious decisions. Now we know, it's a very kind of known fact that we only use 10% of our brain. Now, what does that mean? That means that only 10% of our brain is conscious. The other 90% is the unconscious, subconscious
Right.
parts of our brain and our nervous system, really, that are guiding everything that we do. And so it guides everything that we do, and it kind of guides everything that we draw to us as well, right? Because
Yeah.
we're making
Right.
decisions to be in certain situations, even though, again, nobody wants to be in an unhealthy,
Right.
toxic relationship, right?
Right.
I didn't want to be. I the whole time I didn't want to be, but I was drawn to this situation over and over and over again. And we find ourselves in these patterns a lot, but we're also putting ourselves there. And so once you start to understand your subconscious, you start to understand how that happens. But if you don't have any concept of that, which I didn't, before I started this work, then you're just sitting there like, why is this always happening? Why am I always in a situation like this?
You're you're then saying, for example, I'm going to piggyback what you just highlighted. You found yourself in that situation. You weren't looking to have that as the winning prize to have a toxic relationship before you die as the winning prize of life. That wasn't what you were all about, my friend. But you found yourself in that situation. Are you highlighting then that you are at the helm to move toward a situation like that because of something that, well, coping mechanisms at the age of 3?
I was definitely there because, well, I would say it's twofold, right? I was there, one, because I didn't have better coping mechanisms than I
Okay.
had when I was 3. And
Hmm.
so uh, I did what I knew, and what I knew how to do was be in a toxic situation.
Okay.
Now, I would never go back to my childhood and say my childhood was toxic. Excuse me. But
Hmm.
again, in the class, you learn how and why you end up having that type of coping
Okay.
mechanism that draws
Mhm.
you to that toxic relationship. And then also these situations, again, as you grow in this work,
Yeah.
you realize that these situations are there as opportunities for you to grow. Do
Gotcha.
you get to repeat the same behavior, the same situation over and over again? Do you keep choosing the same
Hmm.
problem over and over
Over.
again?
Hmm.
Or are you ready to grow out of that? And that's why that's part of why these things come to you, or why you
And
bring them to you, really.
and the master class puts a person in a position to grow out of it.
The masterclass gives people all the information they need to start understanding how it all happens.
Hmm.
And then my program gives them the tools to move out of it.
Right.